Alrighty, well, where I am, I'm back at it again. Yeah. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. It is Saturday evening, approximately 9 o'clock in the evening where I'm at. So I do again hope you guys are having a good weekend. And thanks for taking a break. Those of you who do to join me live while I give a another beverage a shot. No pun intended, because I'm not doing any shots. And also discuss a show that is either but try to stick with ones that are either put in a category of their own, ignored, or just really touched me. And so that's why we've had the ones we've had so far. This week, I'm going to give a shout out to Romulan Ale here. This is provided by, well, I purchased it at the last Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. It is sold by Trek Spirits. And it arrived fairly timely. I ordered it while I was at the convention. It got here about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So pretty good delivery as far as speed in which it arrived. And I got it at a mild sale price because at the convention they had a small sale price. So I took a picture of the QR code, went there, and I believe it is normally around $65, and I think I got it for like 49 or 45. So I saved a little bit there on it. Now, um, I decided to do a themed thing because I did want to give this a try. Who doesn't, as a Trekkie, who hasn't wanted to try Romulan ale just for the heck of it to say that you have? But I also thought I'd pair this on Star Trek Discovery because it's gotten a bad rap over the years, either for not being Star Trek enough, for the type of characters it had. Some people have complained that there isn't enough. Representation of certain people on it. And so I thought I would chat about it for those who either watched the first episode, got really irritated, and then decided never to watch it again, and honestly missed one heck of a series if that's what happened, or for people who don't want to pay Paramount Plus for the privilege of watching a television show that was easily, a universe that was easily accessed on TV for free for years and years and years and years. And I don't blame you. I honestly don't. I will tell you, if you want a Paramount Plus membership to see Star Trek and not have to pay anything extra, but maybe get some benefits on the side, uh, and happen to be a Walmart shopper, get a Walmart Plus membership if that's convenient for you, if you happen to use Walmart regularly. Um, or what I did, and it's so weird, I have a Straight Talk account for my cell phone. It's just easier for me to keep track of my data and usage that way. And with Straight Talk through Walmart, I get Walmart Plus. And then because I have Walmart Plus, I get Paramount Plus. So you can cheat your way for a couple of things there for free if you ever want to. That's my tip for the day for people who want to get Paramount Plus. However, for those who want to know what you're getting into, um, I'm going to, real quick, read the back here because this Romulan ale is apparently a vodka, which I did not know until I said, "Hey, what is this?" And they said it's vodka. So on the back, it tells us that Romulan Blue, from its first appearance in Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, Romulan Ale has become legendary throughout the galaxy. Well known as highly potent beverage, this will be funny, and Romulan origin with its characteristic crystal blue color, the Romulan libation was declared illegal by the Federation in early 2280. Even as the Federation attempted to abolish it, Romulan ale has remained a popular and sought after spirit, not only standing the test of time, but also improving with it. And yeah, they do that on Star Trek a lot, that Romulan ale is illegal. And if you have it, you're going to be in trouble. But yeah, come on. This bottle of Romulan Blue you hold in your hands in my hands, was produced and bottled by a 13th generation master distiller, premium ingredients, and classic techniques combined to create this legendary spirit, best served chilled on the rocks or in a glass cosmic cocktail. Nice. Okay. And then they have a little quote Romulan ale, why bones? You know this is illegal. And that was said by James T. Kirk, 2285 Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan. A lot of other little writings on there, but I always think that that's interesting with these specialized bottles that there's either an autograph if you've got McTavish or Sassenach Spirits, or you get a whole little story as to why this is an interesting drink. Now, I will say that this came really well packaged. The bubble wrap they put in these bottles, because all of them I've had to have shipped, is fairly impressive. I'm going to open this up. It's got a little plastic wrapper on it. Now, I've already lost people. That's okay because I was babbling. If you have any questions or comments or anything specific you would like to chat about as far as discovery goes, please feel free to put that in the comments and I will be happy to say something specific. What I'm going to do, if I ever get this open, uh, is start off with Discovery. Now, if you have been a Trekkie at all, you know that Discovery was the first Star Trek show in a couple of decades. The last one we had was Enterprise in the early 2000s. Went for 4 seasons, and that was all she wrote for the series. Of course, we have had some reboot movies, but it's a different timeline, it's a different story, and it's even acknowledged at one point in the cartoon Prodigy that that is still Star Trek, still canon, but a different timeline. All right, gonna give this a pour. There goes my mic. Gonna give this a pour here, and as per usual, it's a bit much. All right, Katie's gonna be silly by the end of this video. Oh, and that's just a. You hear that? It's just a glass topper, but it's got like a little plastic ring so it will fit in. Alrighty. And so Discovery was hailed as, oh, yay, we're finally going to get some new Star Trek. And there were some really high hopes for it. I think a lot of people were excited just to get a new show. We were all very irritated by that premium membership that you need to have to Paramount Plus to be able to watch it. However, excited to get it. Big complaints on that, big excitement, and that was pretty much the split at the beginning. Now, I've got some handy dandy notes here to try and make sure that I don't forget anything in particular. But when we first meet our crew, it's not necessarily going to be the exact same crew and definitely not going to be the same ship that we see throughout the series because they start off telling a story about a crew on the USS Shenzhou, not Discovery. Through a interesting set of events, our hero, Michael Burnham, who is this gal right here, she makes a suggestion and then while meeting some Klingons on how they should act. It's the first time Federation has run into Klingons in 100 years. So, of course, the Klingons are trying to make war for multiple reasons, and the Federation is trying to be all friendly. This does not go over well. Michael's suggestion is not taken. She instead, how do I say this? There's a mutiny. She leads a mild mutiny, but it's a one man mutiny because nobody else knows what she's doing. And from there, we get her in trouble, but she's supposed to be our hero. That was the first complaint I saw from a lot of people when it came to Discovery. Not so much that it was this new crew or whatever. It was that we were going to be following this mutineer. She finds herself back on a starship after being convicted of mutiny and drummed out of Starfleet. She is no longer an officer, but finds herself through circumstances that have been prearranged, not to her knowledge, back on a starship of use with her skills. And there's a war. And not normal too often on Star Trek for there to be a full blown war, with the exception of Deep Space Nine, which built up to it over time. Uh, Discovery just sort of lands that first season into a war. And we meet uh, some different characters, some different species, but that season, that first season, really has nothing to do with exploration and reaching out to new cultures. It is about survival and winning on many, many different playing fields. Now, I'm going to start with some of the complaints when it comes to Discovery overall. First, that our character is a mutineer. The main character is somebody that we don't aspire to be. We don't aspire to be mutineers. We don't aspire to get drummed out of the out of Starfleet, out of the Federation, out of Starfleet, and therefore the Federation. This is not a life goal, and so that was a big problem. Um, Another big complaint when it came to Discovery's first season were the Klingons, on for multiple reasons. One, that this war that takes place is never mentioned in all of Star Trek. And it makes me upset that people get upset about that because of course there are huge gaps in Federation history. This is a fictional show. Nobody wrote down and wrote minute by minute what happened. They tell stories about a certain time, a certain moment, a certain officer, certain group of officers. But there's this huge amount of history that is available to play around with. And so they threw in a Klingon war. And it gave us an in-depth view into some things about the Klingon culture that we did not get on any of the movies in TNG and Deep Space Nine. There are just a lot of really cool revelations. However, one of the revelations that people did not like was the look of the Klingons when they had shaved their heads. Um, and I don't blame them. I'm going to show you real quick here because it is pretty intensely, yeah, it's interesting. So these Klingons are not the Klingons that we grew up with. Rather, you were an original series junkie or you were a TNG Deep Space Nine Voyager junkie. These Klingons are the most extreme version of Klingon that I think could have been invented, come up with. And a lot of people had some severe complaints about this. The other complaint they had was that the Klingons spoke Klingon all the time. And that meant that a lot of people who do not like subtitles were destined to be reading a whole lot of subtitles that first season. And it was very cool that they put so much time and effort into uh, uh, scripting it that way because there is a Klingon language that has been created over the years and, well, started made by one person and then has expanded over the years. And so there is a language to work with. I can understand why they decided to do that. But it was such an extreme decision for people who do not like subtitles. I don't mind them, but a lot of people really do. So I don't blame them for being upset about that. And yes, and so we have the look being wrong of the Klingons, the war that never was supposed to have happened with the Klingons, and the constant annoyance of reading subtitles anytime Klingons were talking to each other, to the Federation, to, yeah. There are some scenes where they go ahead and switch it over to English for us, but it's few and far between there. Now, the first season also took us to the Mirror Universe, which is why I've got my Mirror Universe folks up here. Ta-da-da. But it took us to a Mirror Universe that was kind of unfamiliar and, again, extreme. It seems very extreme from what we are used to with the universe, maybe being evil and troublesome and causing havoc for many of our officers over the years. But this time, our entire crew is trapped in the universe along with their ship. We get a lot of impersonating and hijinks, and we have a wonderful character who gets to play the evil version of herself. And what is really funny is that she is the last person you would think of as being problematic. Let me see here if I can find her real quick. So, no, she's not in that picture. So there's a character called, never seen an episode. Love Star Trek though. Okay, well, awesome. You should check it out if you get a chance. I am trying to find a picture of an actress called Mary Wiseman. She's got red curly hair, and on the show she plays a character called Tilly. Tilly is um, your stereotypical want to be a captain someday. It would make her family proud. She's always cheery. She's not afraid of hard work and practice. She might not be looking forward to it, but she's not afraid of it. And so we meet this really sweet woman who, in the Mirror Universe, turns out to be an evil dictator feared by everyone in in the Empire, in the Terran Empire. And so it is fun to kind of watch her play between her characters because one is evil, one is good, and with more comic relief, even though there is some fear and some lots of issues to be worried about with that. But the Mirror Universe was interesting because it did give people a chance to learn about the differences between people in the mirror universe and people living in our universe. One of them being an extra sensitivity to light which does help reveal the bad guy of the season as it moves through. This sensitivity to light is a common trait of people from the mirror universe. Nothing that's like that has ever been revealed or spoken about on any other series, but we get that a lot in Star Trek where we think we know something and then we learn a little something new that's never been touched on or had a big gap where they were able to play with what we think we know about a race, which I always think is very interesting. Another big complaint about Discovery was the technology does not match up. Now, this is a common problem when you try to make a show that is a prequel, but we have way more technology now. We have a higher ability to do our graphics are 10 times better, our prosthetics are 10 times better, our cameras and what we're able to capture on screen are 10 times better. So the look of a show is very difficult to keep, I don't know, linear throughout the growth of the Federation, the growth of Starfleet. We had sort of that problem when we went to Enterprise after TNG, but I think because they switched up the look of the ship internally to look more like a submarine, there wasn't as much comparison as we got between, say, what TNG looked like compared to the original season, which obviously huge gap, but there was supposed to be a 100-year gap. When you're going back 200 years, I think that they made a good choice by making it a completely different style. With Discovery, we're talking about just a 10-year difference, in case I hadn't mentioned, but I don't think I did, but it's about a decade before um, the original series is supposed to have taken place. So the technology you would think would be comparable to the original series. And one of the ways they get around that, because oh my goodness, Discovery is a whole new technological animal, is that it's supposed to be a scientific research and testing ship. It's got it has, well, everybody talks through holograms. No more screen talking, it's holograms. Also, the transportation, the way they are transported, isn't warp. It's called a spore drive, and it does a whole nother thing where the transportation from one place to another is instantaneous, any place, well, as far as we could tell watching the show, in the universe, which is incredible. You know, between rather exploration or really for anything, you could be there in a snap and literally in a spin when it comes to Discovery. And so, again, why is that technology gone? Why don't we have holograms on the original series, TNG? These kind of things really bugged, well, people like myself and people who grew up with Star Trek. It's not consistent, and it caused a lot of curiosity and problems. I will say that they do, the storytellers throughout the series, by the end of the first season, and definitely throughout the second, explain nearly all of these complaints. Watching the story, listening to the story, getting to know the characters, you do get to understand a good portion of why these things are the way they are. And do you know what I realized? I've been talking about it because I do enjoy it. I haven't even tried my Romulan ale. So I'm gonna give this a shot. It's vodka. So, but it's blue. So my brain keeps telling me it's going to be berry flavored, and it's not. Oh, but that's really good. Oh, that's a really smooth vodka. Now my ice has melted a little bit, so that might be diluting it or bringing out the flavor. But that's really good. Yeah, that's not harsh at all. Okay. Out of Sam's whiskey and Graham's bourbon, I've enjoyed his bourbon a little bit more than I've enjoyed Sam's whiskey, but I think it's because of the sweetness that's in the bourbon. And again, my brain, it wants sweet drinks. Even my water is got the flavored water enhancer, and it's got a sweet drink, so a sweet taste to it. So again, my brain is messing with me. So I've got the spore drive doesn't quite make sense in the future. It doesn't exist. Hologram communications, no holograms on TNG, Deep Space Nine, or Voyager, or well, Enterprise. We wouldn't expect it. So it. There were complaints there, and a big complaint, at least for me, I thought, was that first season, because they're focused on war, they're focused on survival, they're focused on the Klingons and the political issues going on there. We don't actually get a lot of exploring. We do meet some awesome characters, and I will tell you one of my favorite ones is Saru, who is in the middle here on this picture. He is from a race called Kelpians who are not technologically advanced, but he was curious and found a way to communicate uh, to the stars. And someone was listening, and it happened to be the captain of the Shenzhou. And she, for lack of, no, she wasn't a captain at the time. Let me back that up. I believe she was a lieutenant commander or a commander at the time. But she invited him to join them because he was in a place where he didn't belong. And Saru, played by Doug Jones, who, by the way, we hear about him giving hugs at conventions. I got a Doug Jones hug. He's super nice. He is this exceedingly tall, exceedingly slim fellow, and just the biggest flippin' heart. He had been very, very busy, and I caught him right at the end of a line. I think he was getting ready to go. I didn't want to keep him, but I was like, I want to just tell you, I was really excited to see you come up. Hi, Daniel. I was really excited to see you join Star Trek because I loved you on Buffy. He was one of the gentlemen on a very well known episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer known as Hush. And it was a completely, nearly completely silent episode with only music and very little speaking. And Doug played a gentleman, which they were very pale, kind of wrinkly old looking, and smiled just menacingly, and he gave me one of those smiles and clasped his hands like the gentleman. He was super, super nice. But he plays Saru, who's a Kelpian, and he brought a new level of interest to a character because his species had sort of been held back by the people who reside on the planet as well, or not on the planet so much as around the planet. And we got to see some major changes in there with him. That was fascinating and cool. When do I think they might start filming Starfleet Academy? Oh, Daniel, I have an answer for you because at Star Trek Las Vegas, they revealed that Starfleet Academy yeah, will begin production at the end of this month. So, like, any day now, if not now. I haven't seen anything official that production has begun, and we would usually see something like that on Twitter. However, Star Trek is pretty good about keeping things mum when they want to keep things quiet for a while. But I was told by the end of this month. So, fingers crossed, we'll be seeing some news. And I will get back to doing my updates with all of the different news that had come out from Comic Con and Star Trek Las Vegas. I honestly, like, if I did a video, it would just be catching up on everything we already know. So I've been waiting for some interesting news. A little bit did come out this week, so I should get back on that next week. But yes, Starfleet Academy should be in production by the end of this month. Whether that means specifically filming or not, who knows? But we know they've got a bunch of people cast, so they're about ready to go. And writing's been going on for ages. Tawny Newsome has been involved in writing. Now she's doing another half-hour comedy on her with other people. But yeah, so we know stories are there. We know actors are there. Any moment now, we'll have Star Trek again. At any rate, but it's again, we're having issues with Starfleet Academy. Not so much because it's teenagers in space, but how much exploring are they going to do? That's what I always really enjoyed on Star Trek is that we get to meet these, yes, made up, but different cultures, different planets, different ways of thinking. I really enjoyed it. Now, out of that first season, with all the things that people complain about from the war, the mirror universe, the Klingons, all these terrible things, there was at least one episode that most people could agree was just fantastic fun, unless they don't care for the trope. And that was an episode that featured Harcourt Fenton Mudd. If you know that name from the original series, you know it's going to be a fun one. And a little trope we like to call Groundhog Day. Yes, Harcourt had gotten himself, or I should just say Mudd, got himself a hold of a piece of technology that reversed the day by a certain amount of time. I don't want to say 24 hours because I don't think it was 24 hours, but he kept doing redos to try to get a good shot at taking over the Discovery. And that episode was tons of fun because of some of the things going on in our heroes' life there. Michael Burnham is, again, back on a starship. She's not an officer, but she is serving in science capacity. They have, at this point in the story, rescued a person who had been held prisoner by the Klingons for a time, and Michael Burnham was starting to grow feelings for him. A new thing for her because Michael Burnham, part of her past is that she was raised on Vulcan. This also had to do with Klingons, but I'm not trying to spoil too much of it. She's got a really interesting and colorful backstory and is raised by a Vulcan ambassador that, again, if you're familiar with the original series, you will know him. We like to call him Spock's dad. Some people call him Ambassador Sarek. But there's some really good um, story play there in the first season between Sarek and Michael Burnham, and her background there is explained really well. And so during this Groundhog episode, this Groundhog Day episode, Michael is aware that time is going back, and one other character is aware that time is going back, other than, of course, Mud, who has the technology and is doing it all by himself. That and I read that too, Daniel. Yes, I read that as well. Which I think we kind of, I'm interrupting myself again. Daniel says that Strange New World is going to dive right into the original series. And quite frankly, that's not too much of a surprise since the end of the second season introduced Scotty. We've already got Spock. We've got Scotty now. We've got Uhura. I mean, all they got to do is go pick up Sulu somewhere. Chekhov won't be there. He doesn't show up until after the original series starts, so they don't need to find him. Um, we've got nearly the entire bridge crew ready to go. Again, the vodka, very good. Not at all, crazy. All right. Now, what else? Where was I at? So yeah, I really really loved that first episode. I think it's like the seventh episode, I should say. I don't have it written down in front of me, which is my own fault. But it's a really good episode. By the end of the first season, because of the war, because of traveling to the mirror universe, and time travel comes into play because when Discovery travels back from the mirror universe into our universe, they jump ahead by months. But they now are armed with knowledge that helps them to end the Klingon War and at least come to a tentative peace. So that is a really great ending to that. I'm not going to tell you all how, but I'm going to tell you that it ends with Michael Burnham, to nobody's surprise, I would hope, earning back her stripes, so to speak. She is now again an officer, a commander in Starfleet. And so the second season, we see her serving on Discovery. The original captain of Discovery, for again multiple reasons that I'm not going to give away because of spoilers, is no longer captain, and so oh, my husband is going to be running to the store in case anybody wants to know. Do you need him to pick anything up for you? He's getting some distilled water, apparently. At any rate, so the second season, we have her back on Discovery. We have Saru now as captain. He has been promoted again due to his incredible service. He's gone through some amazing changes and will continue to go through some amazing changes. The second season, we also get to see a familiar face, especially again if you are familiar with the original series, and that is Captain Pike. This was by far one of the most interesting revelations and introductions on the show during the second season. And I say that knowing that we get to know some other original characters. But Anson Mount played Pike to a T. He played him just fabulously, and I enjoyed him from the get go. There's nobody who could complain. Now we also get Una, who is our number one. Una Riley, played by Rebecca Romaine, who is married to Jerry O'Connell, who is Commander Ransom on Lower Decks, also Star Trek. So we're keeping it all in the family. And then one of the more interesting casting choices, but definitely so well done, is Ethan Peck, yes, Gregory Peck's grandson, playing Mr. Spock. When we meet Mr. Spock, um, he doesn't really look like Mr. Spock. He has the pointy ears and he's got the eyebrows going up a bit, but he needs a shave. And Mr. Spock, during a good portion of the second season, is a big clue to the arc of the second season, which is mysterious signals in space that are being, well, researched, followed, by Discovery trying to figure out what is going on. Again, not too many spoilers, but I will say that Spock is a huge part of it, and so is Michael Burnham. Now, in case you haven't put it together, Spock and Michael Burnham are brother and sister. Adopted, obviously, but they were raised together. And so that relationship and how they feel about each other gets played on quite a bit in the second season. We get to know uh, our Discovery crew just a little bit better. And I haven't even talked about some of my favorite characters, but I will get to them. Um, and we also get some really interesting adventures for some of our not main characters, side characters, and we got some in the first season. One of the relationships that they really play on well is between the doctor and it's not the engineer, but he's a biological scientist, Stamets, who and his partner, Dr. Colbert. They have some interesting interpersonal relationships that by the time the fourth season came around, they had reached the top of my list of favorite Star Trek couples. They play a very caring couple going through some really crazy stuff really, really well. I enjoyed them both. Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp play those two parts. And if for any no other reason, watch the show because of them. They are fantastic. And I liked my so-called life when I was a kid, so it was nice to see Ricky again. Oh my God, you won't believe how many people don't like the idea of Spock having a stepsister. And you know what? That's why I'm doing this because I'm telling you the reasons the things that I really enjoyed, why I found it to be not only a well written show, but one of the better Star Trek shows, truly. And I do feel that way for all kinds of reasons. Um, and then during that second season, again, I say that both Burnham and Spock are part of this clue, this mystery. And then also, so is Burnham's mother, who had we assumed been dead because of an experiment gone wrong many, many years ago. And to kind of pull this family together and solve this mystery was really, really interesting. And what it led to in the end was heartfelt and tearful and a big choice that so many people um, chose to move forward in the story with Michael. Yes, the written characters, but it was heartfelt and it was very much a like we hear Star Trek is a family. They were a family and moving forward. And at that point, when we do some more time traveling, Spock is left behind. It isn't by his choice, but goodness, it's a good thing he was because then we wouldn't get Strange New Worlds, which is the spinoff of that season that gives us Pike, Spock, and Una Riley, also known as Number One, moving on to their story on the Enterprise, which is something that we did not get that original idea of Gene's when he first came up with Star Trek because networks and whatnot didn't believe certain things would play properly and nowadays they can. So it's great. I was very happy about that. I really enjoyed the second season because we learned some things about Spock. We get the feeling that Spock, despite the fact that he has to fight between being a Vulcan and human oftentimes, and we see that he has just chosen the Vulcan as what he's honoring, we see a lot of his background, his I won't say flashbacks, but his backstory, not just with him growing up with a sister, because he also has a brother that we don't really talk about either. But so we have this sister, and we get to see him growing as a child, how he's introduced, even though his mother is human, to human play, to siblings. He gets a human story throughout his childhood, I'm sure, with his sister, and yeah, so I think it was a really good opportunity to show us Spock as a child, which we really don't get to see unless you watch the animated series, the original series, animated series, because they do play with that a bit there. Now, by the end of the second season, as I said, we have our Discovery crew moving on to their next adventure. And each season very much is like this. Each season has its own story and its own goal for the season. And now we're going to do some time traveling again. Um, Yeah, and Daniel, thank you very much, points out that also, and I didn't touch on this much, that the second season gives us a lot of Section 31. Part of the reason I don't consider Section 31 that much in Discovery is because it is yet another thing that we complain about. And two, it's not the part of Star Trek that I'm watching it for. I will be watching Section 31 when the movie comes out, of course. But because it's what works, because it's a secret society, well, no, it's a secret organization for lack of a better term. Um, yeah, it doesn't play off real well, but it is kind of the big bad reason for things that happen. So yeah, Section 31 is important. More importantly, the leader of Section 31 is a bit of an issue. Anyway, again, at the end of season 2, time traveling from the future to the past? No, no, no. The even further future. So we travel to what, the 31st century, 32nd century. 32nd century. They are now 900 years ish in their future. And they do it to save the universe. I will give you that much as far as the spoiler goes. They do it to save the universe, and it works. But now they are in unfamiliar territory because a catastrophic event has caused all warp travel to be impossible, at least by dilithium crystals. Or, well, no, there's a whole thing because people still are trying to use dilithium. But deep space travel, not happening. And so the Federation has broken apart. There's very few members left. Earth is not a member when we first meet up with these people in the way future. Also, Burnham has landed in the future by herself. And so for a year, she is there alone. She makes new friends and gets a job, which I think is interesting. Her job, well, her job itself is very interesting. A year goes by. Finally, Discovery catches up with her. Big happy reunion. Discovery has a little adventure of their own when they first arrive, but big happy reunion. Um, and then things get interesting as Discovery tries to work with what is left of the Federation. Because of Discovery's unique drive system, they can still do deep space travel and therefore are used to check on other folks, check on problems with the few ships that are running in the Federation. People are not really pleased with the new admiral at first. It took me a while to warm up to him. I swear that first half of the third season, I was pretty sure we were going to have him turn into a Lorca. But no, he turned out to be a pretty nice guy, family man, just understanding of his situation. I think that they're very alone in the universe, and that's what they've got to work with. So, yeah, he grew on me. Through a series of interesting events, we find out that Saru's species has advanced and matured, um, but that there was a small problem with one of his people. And because of many adventures that include a lot of the crew going kind of respecting their past. We have one crew member that goes to basically a garden nursery and finds her people and what happened, and then she finds a new direction for her life. We do get a moment where the crew beams down to Earth and goes and sees a familiar tree that has apparently been there for over 900 years. So good on that tree. Glad it's having a happy life. But throughout the season, we do get moments where they get to touch on their past. And we get one of my favorite episodes that this season as well, because again we run into Burnham's mom, and we learn, or I should say, she learns the fate of her brother. Again, this is far, far in the future, and so she is able to find um, how her brother's life went. We also get the conclusion of a story that began in the next generation having to do with the reunification of the Vulcans and the Romulans, which was, I think, another really good way to respect where this story is coming from and the canon that already exists. I know a lot of people complain about fan service, that there is too much, but I think that this one was done really well, even though pretty much the entire episode is fan service, but it was done so well. And Romance added, Fear was so awesome. Was the Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He was in the Mummy movies. But he was in something else too. That it. Sorry, Daniel's pointing out where the admiral is from. He was in something else that I just watched the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that's another one." But now it escapes me. But so third season was really trying to solve the problem of travel, trying to find the cause of travel complications, and also trying to wake up the Federation to try to be what it once was. And when we end the third season, we've solved the travel issue, we've discovered why. Um, and we've renewed hope in the Federation becoming what it was, which leads us into the fourth season. The fourth season, my note is um, whole new. Oh, they're back to traveling. They're back to exploring. They're trying to one gather up old Federation members and have them join the Federation again. So many people had left. Um, they're just trying to get people to come back. In fact, even the Vulcans, again, Earth, it took them a while to come back. They're finally back, and so they are doing a lot of traveling. The crew of Discovery is doing a lot of traveling and trying to touch base with folks. And as they're doing this, an anomaly from out of nowhere starts destroying planets and civilizations throughout their universe. I'm going to take a moment. As Vicky says, I really liked. Oh, yeah, we already did that. I'm sorry. Vicky says, I like Oded Fear in the Mummy movies. I think I'd really like this series. You would really like this series. I really enjoyed it. And Daniel says, Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo. He was. I've never watched that. It's not up my alley. There are very few movies that I've never seen. That's one of them. But but I could see him being in a movie like that, just playing it entirely too serious and coming off comedically ridiculous. Um, so, yes, and so the universe itself is under attack. They don't know why. And so, again, it's a nice mystery to be solved. Not red lights to figure out where they're coming from or signals to figure out where they're coming from, but destruction to try and find the source of. And hopefully, because it is Star Trek, negotiate something with those who built it and have put it out into the universe, negotiating a peace, a stop. Stop attacking us, stop trying to destroy us. Um, through a lot of scientific discovery and exploration and experimentation, they find that the source of of this anomaly is really, 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 really far away, outside their known universe, and that's one problem. Um, Two, they're having some people who within the large group, the Federation, they have to do some votes and discussions about what they want to do, and people aren't generally agreeing on their course of action. We get some rogue entities trying to do their own thing, while Starfleet is trying to, again, go through diplomatic channels as best they can to broker a peace. While they explore outside their universe, they find new challenges in communication, in understanding. And once again, I give Discovery some big credit for coming up with some new ideas. Oftentimes in Star Trek, they kind of replay the same things. So the same basic storyline gets played over and over again, especially as a new series comes out, because they want to use what they know has worked in the past. Discovery went off the rails in a lot of ways by doing things brand new and in completely different ways than any other series had done beforehand. And this new species communicating in a new way and different ways of them discovering how to communicate and where they are. I thought it was all very well done. Good imaginations. It's like they got some new blood in there and new ideas. And I really appreciated that. And I also very much appreciated that the new species was nothing like we'd ever heard of, seen, or imagined before in Star Trek. I want to give credit where credit is due to the writers on that for coming up with something brand new. And of course, in magnificent Star Trek style, things do end well, but it is one heck of a journey getting there. And some interesting faces show up at the end, but I was satisfied with that ending, very much so. Now, I will say real quick that there was a very large break between the fourth season and the fifth season. So big, in fact, that they announced that it was going to come out at least twice and possibly three times that I'm aware of on completely different dates four completely different dates. And we expected it, gosh, I want to say almost 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. We just got it in August. No, not in August. What am I thinking? It's March. March. We got it this year, and we were supposed to get it basically a year to a year and a half ago. We've been waiting for a long time to get this second part, or this last part, I should say, because, and I think part of the reason it was delayed is because unexpectedly the fifth season became the final season. I believe that they were very much expecting there to be a sixth season. In fact, the way the story was written at the end, they were going to go into a sixth season. The cast, the crew went back and refilmed and filmed some other pieces to try and give the fans a satisfactory ending. And before I get into season five, I will say I was satisfied by the ending. We get to see the future and how things go for this woman who jumped centuries in the future, who started off as a mutineer, and she got the happy ending for, quote, happy ending, yeah, for lack of a better term, and it went really nicely. I feel bad that they found out after they'd shot everything and then had to go back and reshoot. That had been very difficult on them. However, they did a beautiful job, so I will not fault any of the cast, any of the crew, any of the writers on that. The reason the fifth season was very interesting is because, and I'm going to give you a minute here. Do you recall the Next Generation episode in which we have the Klingons, the Romulans, Starfleet, and Cardassians all chasing clues from DNA to try and find the source of? Some people thought it was a weapon, somebody thought it was great knowledge. But in the end, we find out it's a race that basically seeded the universe, and we call them the progenitors. Well, fifth season's all about the progenitors. I thought that was a beautiful thing to throw in there. That was very interesting. It is a good callback, good fan service, but they took it in a whole different direction, and partly because of throwing in a Breen character, which we knew very little about the Breen, and partly because of the technological advances for special effects. This season came out very interestingly, and I'm saying that special effects there because of at near the end when Burnham is in a strange space that was the progenitors, and gravity is weird and everything looks odd. It's at any rate, it was put together really beautifully, I thought, that season. So the progenitors have left some clues, and the idea is that whoever collects these clues will be able to control the development and creation of life. And of course, Starfleet wants to get it, Federation wants to get it so that the wrong people don't get it. Um, we find that other people want to get it, I don't want to say for the wrong reasons, but for reasons of um, their own needs, their own hope for power. I always think that it's an odd excuse that, well, we better get it or other people might. Well, you know what? There's nothing that says we're going to be any better with it than other people, so that's a silly excuse. So Discovery, that is the basic outline for season five. For they go through clues, they puzzles. There's another set of people who are trying to get the clues in the puzzles. So there's a lot of racing, um, uh, and I don't know, borrowing other people's knowledge and maps and ideas, and the whole crew works together in different ways. And now I'm going to get to one of the reasons that I really enjoyed Discovery. It is not just because of the difference in stories and the imagination of the writers coming up with some different ideas. It is because there is an extreme diversity of characters. And I don't just mean that some of them are tall, short, some of them are skinny, fat, some of them are dark skin, light skin. I'm talking about an extreme range of personalities. It wasn't just we need to fit these molds to make a good crew, because we get different players throughout the seasons that don't necessarily take place of somebody who left. They just added on to the spectrum of the storytelling. As I said before, we had Burnham and we had Tilly, who was, again, the kind of innocent but very eager officer. Um, We had O and we had Detmer, who are our frontline folks who fly the ship and make sure the ship's going as it should be or running as it should be. They were fantastic. I enjoyed them immensely throughout the series. Um, we also got introduced to an engineer who was played by Jet, but she's Jet Reno. I'm sorry, not played by Jet, Jet Reno. She is a fantastic, fun character. I enjoyed her tons and tons. But we also got Gray and Adira. Adira being an interesting character on their own for the simple fact that they are human but Trill. And we meet them in the third season after Voyager, after Discovery's jumped in the future. But it opens up, I don't want to say, it opens up the minds and lessens some of the hostility and bigotry that the Trill had against melding with other species because at this point, because of the stuff that was happening for season three, the lack of travel, there weren't nearly as many hosts for the symbiotes. And being able to open that up to other species kind of took a weight off of the Trill homeworld's minds. And it was a really beautiful way to introduce that idea and kind of give us back on Trill too, because that was always a fun place to go with Jadzia. And yeah, so that I respected that and enjoyed it. Their boyfriend Gray had passed away, and it was his symbiont that went into them. So when he passed away, that energy, that mind was still with them. And so Adira would talk to Gray. Now that I believe because the connection was strong, because they were uh, 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 seeing each other beforehand, dating, whatever they do in the future. Um, sh- let's see, the ship that they were on was destroyed in a matter of moments, and so Gray had just no time to find somebody else. The doctor at hand put the symbiote into Adira, and so they had the symbiote, and from then on they could see Gray, um, who was a fun and interesting character on their own because he was just a really sweet person and really wanted to just be corporeal again, but wasn't complaining about it, was happy to be uh, with Adira regardless. And Adira had trouble finding a way to let other people know that they could see Gray and tell Stamets, who is the bioengineer of the way they travel. And this this family forms uh, through the seasons of Dr. Colbert, Stamets, Adira, and then eventually Gray as well. And I thought that was a really great example of something that my sister has told me about, but that I don't see too much in real life. That is how a lot of LGBTQ families come together because some people, and I'm not trying to get political here, just how it is. A lot of kids who are kicked out of their home need to find a place to go, and they find it in the LGBT community, creating new families where they are, loved and cared for. And I thought that that was a very cool thing to see right there on screen. And obviously, the circumstances were very different. Adira and Gray were not kicked out for being who they were. There's literally no family left. So, but they find a family, they form a family, and I thought that was very, very cool. I really enjoyed that. I'm hoping that I'm not. Now, I haven't actually talked about Captain Giorgio, who is a pivotal character throughout the series, played by Michelle Yeoh, who I'm sure you know. Um, she's plays a character in the beginning from our universe, and then plays a character from the mirror universe, and that's how we get her in Section 31 in her own movie because her storyline ends during season 4, and she is sent off to go have her own adventures. It was supposed to be a series, now it's a movie. It's very cool. Hoping to see it, even though, again, Section 31, not my thing. Um, Now, one big complaint when it comes to there being all of these different characters, a lot of different types of people, I heard the biggest complaint was there just weren't enough white straight males representing, and that most of the men would feel left out. To that, I say, welcome to my world. I didn't get a female captain until Voyager, and I was in my 20s, so you'll live. And if you feel really, really bad, go back and watch James T. Kirk grabbing everybody's that he can find and giving them a big kiss. You'll have your life straightened out and can live knowing that, dominance is what it's supposed to be. Anyway, that's me being snarky, and that's the kind of thing I would normally edit out. But I'm just going to say it there and, let y'all be mad at me. Anyhow, now I haven't had any questions or any wacky things to discuss about Discovery, but um, from from the moment that I found out that Sonequa Martin Green was getting killed on The Walking Dead, and then watched her die. She played Sasha on The Walking Dead, died for her community. Brilliant death. That's the way you go out. I was so mad because I loved her character. I thought it was great. And then I found out she was going to be on Discovery, and I was like, oh, okay, then kill her. It's all right. And I was so glad with the character she played. It was very different. It wasn't the character you wanted to be right away because nobody wants to get in trouble in Starfleet on purpose. I argue that her decision and idea should have been listened to, and they could have avoided a whole Klingon war. But that's why I'm not in the military, never was, because I would do terrible when it came to chain of command. I would have my own plans, and people just needed to. I'm much better as the mom and wife because people listen. Sometimes they have to, or I won't make dinner. And I really, really enjoyed the fascinating characters. We did get some new species, though not as many as I would normally expect to get in a Star Trek series. However, again, we are shortened by the number of episodes that we get in a season. So um, there was exploration. There were some cool and interesting species that we did get to meet. I will again say Saru. I love the Kelpians. I love the way that story played out. There's another species there on their planet causing trouble, but I don't want to spoil it. But it's a really good story and very much worth watching it for. Now, let's see here. I do believe that's all the notes I have, all the big points I wanted to make. I will again say that I'm enjoying this vodka. Romulan ale, I suggest. I would say get it. Is one of the less expensive bottles I've ordered lately, and it's starting to drip now because I had it in the freezer so it would be chilled, and now it's dripping because it was cold. Um, I would recommend it. It's good if you like vodka that has a nice flavor, and it would be hilarious at your next dinner party or whatnot to just kind of pull it out and say, anybody up for some Romulan ale? It was delivered this week. Pick a system you think it ought to have come from. It'll be funny. Thanks for joining me. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Star Trek Discovery. Did you like it? Did you watch it the first episode and just go, no, this is all wrong, never watch it again? Did you struggle through and make it to an episode where it kind of started making sense? Or did you love it from day one and never had a problem with it? That's where I stand. Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the regular videos. This is just me talking to the camera and hopefully giving you guys some thoughts to marinate on. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, notifications bell, all that fun stuff. If you're a Patreon, please go to the Patreon page and reduce your membership to non-payment because I'm going to remove all of the paid memberships for Patreon because um, I have to admit to myself that I'm not able to keep up with members and Patreon as much as I would like to, and I have to focus on one, so I'm going with members. So I do appreciate that the extra assistance this past year, really, really do. I feel like I'm just taking advantage at this point though. So do cancel those. Oh, and but stay on as a non-paid member if you'd like, because eventually I could pick it up and you'll want to know when. And if there's other Star Trek stuff you want to see, or if you like Outlander, please check out any of my other videos. And until the next one, whatever you choose.